Welcome to today's episode of the Group Therapy Podcast. Today we have movie maker, FX guy, local filmmaker out of Dayton, Deryk Wehrley. Deryk, tell us about yourself.
Hello. Well, as you know, my name is Deryk Wehrley. I'm a special effects makeup artist located in the Dayton area. I've been doing it for quite some time, full-time professionally since 2019. And love doing those independent films and getting very, very, very messy. I would say on occasion, but it's pretty frequent actually. It's gonna be hard to see me without blood stains on my hands and shoes.
Oh man! So first question out the chute, I got to ask you. You had to be a Fangoria kid. Did you get the videos and stuff out of Fangoria to teach you how to do all the special effects makeup?
Oh, absolutely. So I grew up in a really small town. Really small town, Pleasant Hill. I'm sure you know where it's at.
Hill, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, just so it's like, population 700 in this whole town. It's itty bitty. So I remember going to the next biggest town over, Troy, Ohio, and there was a bookstore there, and they would carry Fangoria, and I would talk specifically my grandmother into buying me issues of Fangoria all the time, and I would read those things forward, backward, and sideways, and watch horror movies. Fast forward, rewind, pause, frame by frame, trying to figure out how did they make these effects happen. So many different movies, and I truly, without Fangoria, and sometimes having those editorials where they have FX artists describe little things or show you little things, I don't know how I would have figured it out, because even watching movies behind the scenes and stuff, they only give you little tidbits of stuff, so it's like I had to kind of fill in the pieces, trial and error and stuff. But Fangoria, Famous Monsters and all that stuff, without those magazines, I would be nothing.
Yeah, I was one of those kids. I don't know what the age difference between you and I are, but when I was in high school, we had this one class, first year for this class, went up to Sydney. They had this one, it was applied sciences. It's where they took science and tried to apply it to everyday stuff, and then make science and technology fun for kids, essentially. And me and one of my best friends at the time, we were horror movie kids. It's fascinated. And Child's Play had come out. I think Child's Play 2 had just come out. And fascinated by Kevin Yeager, loved his work and stuff back in the day. And so we did a report on Kevin Yeager and how to build the Chucky doll. So,
oh my God, that's amazing.
So we built a partially animatronic, the old school wire pulleys things. We built like a hand, so the hand would articulate like that. And we did because Kevin Yeager's from Ohio, so that was big time for us as horror movie kids. And we did our report on Kevin Yeager and the building of the Chucky doll. And our introduction was the beginning of Child's Play, not the beginning, but where Chucky first shows up in the apartment to confront the guy who taught him voodoo. And that was our whole setup for the whole thing.
That is so awesome.
Oh man,
it's funny you bring that up. Actually, I have a really good friend who lives in Dayton that went to school with Kevin Yeager in the Dayton area, like in the Oakwood kind of area. And he's like, "Yeah, we were buddies back." Has photos of them together in high school and stuff. And I'm like, that is insane, dude. Like, that is so crazy.
Well, it's a lot of that, because it's not that big of an area. Yeah, Dayton's got a lot of people, but when you really think about it, it's not that big, No,
it's totally small world type action with that. I mean, the amount of people I've even met that are from Ohio at some point, or have lived here or know the area. I mean, it is pretty crazy.
Yeah. It's funny because you have the behind you, I see you got the Masters of Horror Mausoleum box set. Yes. I got mine from a friend of mine who now works for RJL Entertainment, who basically is one of the big people behind Shudder. and we went to high school together. I'm like really good friend.
Mark Ward. Mark Ward is his name, and he is my cousin Amber and he are married. I lived with him for about a year out in LA.
That's funny because Mark's my my friend Zach's uncle. So we're I consider Zach family.
Small world.
Yeah, so like again, small world.
Yeah, Mark started working with Shudder exclusively now, and they have a partnership with RLJ.
Mm-hmm.
When I lived in LA, I worked with him at RLJ, and my job as an intern there was literally to watch the movies and assist him with choosing which movies they would like end up buying, because they were like, hey, you're the target audience.
Mm-hmm.
Watch some of these movies and tell us what you think of them and stuff. And that's how like movies like The House is October Built, that was one of the movies I picked out. And I'm like, hey, this movie's pretty awesome. And they ended up buying that one. Mark and I still talk pretty frequently, with me doing a lot of independent films, that the kind of stuff Shudder picks up all the time. You know, I every time I do something that I'm like, man, this is kind of noteworthy, I text him about it, and I'll send him screeners and stuff like that too. So it's, again, small world stuff, man. That is super crazy.
Yeah, we went to high school together.
That is amazing.
Yeah,
that's so cool.
It was funny because one day we were sitting there talking. He goes, "Yeah," I was like, "Man," I was like, because I kept looking at his friends list on Facebook one time, and I'm like, and it'd been a bunch of years since I'd talked to him, because I didn't quite put the two together, and I was like, "You used to hang out with Chris?" And he's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Did you ever hang out with?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Did you ever, hang out over at Chris's house?" He's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Man, I remember hanging out with these two guys. We played Dungeons and Dragons together." And I was like, "Yeah, that was me and my buddy Dante. We were." So it was like,
that is crazy.
Yeah. And I haven't talked to him for a while, but every once in a while he'll like message me, and he'll like ask like all about wrestling, and then I won't hear from him for a while, and then he'll like chime in again about wrestling. I'm like, okay.
That's how it is. He and I, like, every once in a blue moon. I mean, there's so many musical artists and movies and wrestling stuff that he and I kind of pass back and forth and stuff. And once in a blue moon, I'll be like, hey, check out this movie. He'll be like, hey, check this out. And he'll be like, hey, you working on this? When you get a screener, send that to me. Or he'll be like, hey, did you see Danhausen's with AEW now? And like, just like goofy stuff like that back and forth. Or like, hey, check this album out. And it's, he kind of like falls off the face of the earth every once in a while. He's a super busy guy. And
yeah, definitely.
But it's, he's out there doing some really crazy, awesome stuff. And honestly, a lot of what I do now, I really owe to him, because he definitely got me linked up with a lot of really amazing people in LA who have kind of opened the door for a lot of opportunities I've had over the years. And even though it kind of takes time for those things to happen, without him introducing me to some of these people, I wouldn't have gotten to do some of the cool stuff that I have. So I'm very, very thankful for all the doors he opened for me. Cool stuff.
It's like I said, small world, man. It's just one of the ones you just don't.
Absolutely.
So what are you working on currently?
So currently, I have two projects that I'm gearing up towards that are shooting in the fall. They're actually going to be shot back to back. One is in West Virginia. It's called Macabre Mountain. And then the other one is called Watchdog. And I can't say too much about Macabre Mountain right now, because all they've really done have been like, here's the poster, here's who involved, and that's about it. But Watchdog is really cool because it's actually directed by L.C. Holt, who was in You're Next. He was the lamb mask killer in that one. This is his second or third film he's directed at this point, because he also did one called Time's Up late last 2 years ago. And we have Felissa Rose in that. This will be like at that point in time, this will be my fifth or sixth movie I've done with her. We have Wes Robinson, who is in the 2016 Blair Witch film. We have Mark Patton from Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, which is super awesome. We have Chaney Morrow, who was in Haunt. He was the ghost in Haunt. He was also in the most recent Wrong Turn film as well. I worked with Cheney on Late Checkout. I worked with LC on Late Checkout. I've worked with Felissa now in Dark Circles, The Undesirables, Late Checkout. She's on Macabre Mountain as well, I believe. So Felissa and I, like, when we met on Dark Circles, you know, we were vibing really good. And she was like, you know, we need to work together more. Now it's like every 20 minutes, she's like, oh, are you a part of this project? Well, you are now. And I'm like, awesome. Like, it's crazy because it's like there'll be like days where I'm sitting there texting her back and forth for like hours. And I'm like, this is weird, you know? Another person I've worked with a lot recently is Hannah Fairman, who is in VHS. She was the siren from the Amateur Night with the Mark face. I Like You girl. She, her and I text pretty frequently, and I'm like, and I tell her all the time, I'm like, dude, when I saw VHS and you scared the shit out of me, never in a million years did I think I would be texting you and like making dinner plans with. Like, this is the weirdest thing, you know? It's it's crazy, but you know, they're all super awesome people, and I really like working with them. And Hannah, I've done a couple projects with her as well now, but I just have 2 coming up in the fall. It's been pretty light this year, which after last year, I was a part of 11 or 12 productions last year, so that kept me really busy. It blows people's minds. From July 1st of 2021 to October 31st of 2021, I was home a combined 3 weeks in that entire span of time. And like my day jobs, one of them fired me that I had at the time because like, dude, you're never here, so like beat it. And the other job was like, it's fine. But it was crazy because 2 of those 3 weeks was because I caught COVID on one of the sets I was on, and nearly killed me. It was horrible. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I mean, it's so busy and go all the time. So it's nice to kind of have a summer off where I can actually do things with family and friends. Whereas like last year, I was just like, oh, I'm in like Idaho now. So it's like, sorry. But I got a few people that I've worked with over the last couple years that have projects coming up next year that I'm pretty excited about. Can't say a whole much about them quite yet, mainly because not confirmed on any of that, but some really cool stuff coming up. Lots of slasher movies, some creature features coming up. One of them I'm actually going to be announced for this weekend, I can probably say, is it's a movie called It Feeds. And I can't say too much about the monster in it, but it is a creature feature. And we're kind of like comparing it to a very Pumpkinhead style movie, which, you know, if you're a horror fan, Pumpkinhead's one of those greats, you know, kind of, I don't want to call it like a lost classic because it's like people do know about it and stuff, but definitely does not get the recognition it deserves because it is a super fun movie.
Oh yeah.
So, you know, it's got lots of cool stuff in the works. We just got off of Late Checkout. That's in post-production right now. And that is a slasher film that's kind of stylistically an homage to like early 2000s horror. A lot of people like kind of crap on that era of horror, but there was like a lot of really awesome stuff. I thought the House of Wax remake was great. So it's like, you know, some of those had great set pieces, awesome soundtracks, and like were filmed very beautifully, very vibrant colors and stuff like that. So we kind of wanted to capture that with this particular film. And we had, like I said, Cheney Morrow and Elsie Holt were both on that. Felissa's in it. And we have, you know, some people that I've been friends with for years. Our director of photography, Jaron, who I've done a couple projects with at this point. And it was it was a ton of fun. That was the most blood I've ever used in a film. We used just under 8 gallons, which was pretty outrageous. Like, I mean, when you compare it to something like Hatchet, where they're using like over 50, like, you know, but for something so independent and so small budget, because our budget on that was only $28,000. It's impressive that we were able to do some of the things we did and for it to look as amazing as it does. That is the only time I've worked on something where the cast and crew, after witnessing one of these kills, were all kind of just like, oh, wow. You know, like it just kind of uncomfortable because we're just like, man, that kind of bummed me out a little bit. That was intense, you know, but it's like, that's the reaction you want. I'm like, man, if we're feeling that way, how are people watching this going to feel? So it was really cool to get some of those reactions. And I think people are really, really, really going to like it. And so we're aiming to have that finished by like August roughly, so we can start getting it in like the festival circuit and stuff. But yeah, definitely super excited about that project for sure.
Cool. I have to ask you this one. What was your first movie that got you into horror?
Oh, that's a really good question. I want to say, okay, so this is kind of a multi-part question. So I feel like the thing that really kind of piqued my interest, obviously, like anyone else, is going to the video store and seeing those covers. They don't do movie covers like they used to. It's like, some of the indie stuff does, but it's like nothing will ever stand out like the Jason Goes to Hell poster with the worm monster on through the mask. That one always stood out. The VHS cover of Squirm with the skull with all the worms and stuff. Like, there were so many cool covers. The Phantasm cover, I mean, Reanimator, like all this stuff that really stood out to me. So that was like kind of the start of like pulling me in. But I think the first movie I saw that really made me like horror would probably be between, and these are weird ones, Children of the Corn, because I remember seeing that at a pretty young age and I was like, man, this is like spooky. But also the original Halloween 2, which I would argue is probably to this day my favorite of the Halloween franchise. But I think the one that made me really want to be a part of it and make the movies is between Reanimator and Day of the Dead. So, those two I think have incredible effects in them. And yeah.
The Reanimator is one of my favorite movie series. I love Reanimator. But you're right. The whole VHS covers. My wife and I literally like an hour ago had that conversation because we were flipping through Shudder and was it Bloody Mary or whatever has her dissolving. So she's like from the waist down, she's skeleton from the waist up, she's screaming. I was like, I would remember that vividly in the video store in the back horror section of was it? I think it was Home Video Ventures in Piqua. And I remember going into the section. And but yeah, you're right. The horror movie poster art is a dying thing.
It is. And there's a lot of great artists out there that are doing incredible things. Like you got Mark from Sadist Art Designs. His stuff is amazing. Devin Whitehead, Justin Osborne. There's so many great artists out there doing like homages and new stuff in that style. Like I'm wearing this super sick shirt for The Gate, which is like another one that I super love, but it's like the art's so cool on that, but it's like nothing quite hits like some of those posters did back in the day. It's so hard to recapture the magic that you feel when you see a lot of that stuff for the first time. And there's even few movies like I watch Reanimator pretty religiously. I'd say I watch it probably once a month just because I enjoy it so much. Same with Day of the Dead. I feel like I can watch both of those nonstop and never get sick of them. But I do long for that time when I saw them for the first time and I was just completely mind blown by what I was seeing. And, it's like seeing those covers in the store for the first time and recognizing like, yeah, I'm into this. It's same with like, I know you have the comic shop. So it's like, I think about like my first time reading specific comics, my introduction to certain characters and things like that. And it's like the feeling that you get. And there's been very few recently that have done that for me. Same with music, your first time listening to that, to that specific artist or album. And it's like that magic. I wish I could feel that again. And when someone sees something for the first time, I'm like, man, I am so jealous of you right now. It's
it's legitimately, I'm been able to kind of relive that because my son, he's 22, but he's one of the ones he socially he didn't like going to big social events. Sure. And recently I've been able to get him to go to concerts. And I took him to see Slayer's farewell tour down at Riverbend.
I was there. That was a great show.
Yeah. And he was like, we were sitting there and he was like, And pretty soon you see the head getting hard, and it's like, and then pretty soon the hand was going up. He's like, and he's just, every song, and it's like, yes, I miss that.
That's amazing. I love
it. One of his favorite bands, two of his favorite bands are Clutch and The Sword, and we just saw them recently in Columbus, and we got him right up front, and I'm like, so he's literally the rail, him, stage, and I'm like, just sitting there watching it. I'm like, yeah, I remember that. I remember that.
That's amazing. I love that for him, though. That's super cool.
So it's you always see that, was it Living Through Your Children? And I'm like, I am, I guess, but not like, I want you to play sports. I want you to go out and play football, because I couldn't play football.
For sure. And it's a little bit different. And my dad and I have something similar, because, so my dad right now, my dad is 51. I am 27. I'll be 28 soon ish. And, my dad and I just kind of, we did the same thing. We went to shows a lot. We listened to a lot of the same music. And even though my music taste has kind of evolved past, I've gotten into way heavier stuff than what he's into, but it's like, there's still artists we always go see together. We go to see Iron Maiden together a lot. It's my favorite band. So it's like, anytime they come through, I see them 3 or 4 times when they hit the States. So we do Maiden a lot. We used to go see Megadeth a lot every time they'd come through. And, it's just like, we're going to see Voivod next week, because a guy he works with is actually opening for them. So we're like, hey, that'll be a cool way to support him and check out a band we haven't seen before. And, that's more, I don't feel like it's as much like Living Through Your Kids as much as like, that's like such a bonding thing, because music truly brings people together unlike anything else in the world. And it's like sharing your favorite movies with somebody. And it's like feeling that magic together with someone you care about, someone you love, is really important. I was talking to my girlfriend earlier today. Our first date, you'll laugh at this. Our first date, we saw, it was Prong and Obituary together down in Cincinnati. And the headliner was Black Label Society. I'm not really a fan, but it's like a huge Obituary fan. And it was around the time when her and I started talking. I was like, hey, I got like an extra ticket to this concert. Would you want to go? She's like, well, I've never really listened to these bands. And I was like, it'll be fun. Like, trust me, you'll have a good time. And she's like, never listened to death metal in her life. And when we left, she was like, man, I want more. We got to go see them again. And I'm just like, this was amazing. Being able to share that with someone who's never heard it, totally going in blind, was incredible. And I've told her to this day, I was like, I'm going to start just taking you to shows, not giving you any background, just like throwing you in completely blind, just because her reactions are so great with that. So she's coming with my dad and I to see Iron Maiden when they come to Columbus in October. And so we're super excited about that. But yeah, I mean, being there and like watching somebody kind of like slowly getting into it and then like evolve with time towards like, they want to be right up front, they want to get in the pit, they want to get super into it. And that's a really cool feeling. And again, like, that's something I wish I could totally experience again, because I mean, at this point in time, God, I've been to so many shows, and it's like, it's at a point, you reach a point when you're a fan of music where it's like, your list of bands you want to see kind of dwindles down as you start seeing so many people. And then it's like bands break up, members leave, they retire, whatever it is. And then it's like, oh man, then you get to talk to people who got to see them at some point and stuff. And it's just like, it's just not even fair.
Well,
so, it's, I tell people all the time, if you're even on the fence about going to a show, just do it. Life is too short. Just buy the concert tickets and go. Even if you don't have a plan of how to get to that show, you hop on it.
I'm 95% a metal guy, that, but yeah. I love synthwave stuff.
Oh, same.
And Perturbator is coming, and I'm like sitting there, and it's like the closest they're coming is Detroit. And I'm sitting there, and my son's sitting next to me. We're at the shop, and I'm like sitting there going, man, tickets are only like $30. And we looked at where it's at, and it's in this, and I'm like, it's in a club. It's not even a big place. I'm like, they never come to the States. We're going. And I just bought it.
I've seen him. I've seen him live. It was in 2017. He did a full tour. It was just him, no openers, no nothing. And it was the nearest date at the time was in Detroit. And I was thinking about going. It was at the L Club, a real small place. And randomly he added a Indianapolis date. And I was like, well, that's way closer. So I went, and because it was added like not even a week before the date when it happened, it was in a tiny club. Like, dude, I'm not even joking. There was maybe 50 people there. Like that is it. There was like nobody there. And I mean, he blasted out, I mean, probably close to 20 songs. I mean, played a ton of stuff, played some new stuff. And it was a fantastic set. And I'm telling you, the light show, the energy, and now that he has a live drummer with him, absolutely going is a great option. I'm going with a few friends to see Carpenter Brute up in Chicago. They're playing in Chicago in August, and I'm also seeing them out in Las Vegas. I'm going to Psycho Las Vegas as well. So that's going to be a good one because I've heard Carpenter's great live, so I'm super excited about that, especially with that new album Leather Terror, which I'm telling you,
it's right. Yeah, there it is.
Yes, I had to get it on vinyl. That might, no joke, that might be my album of the year because it is like cover to cover. It's a 10 out of 10 for me.
Oh yeah, definitely.
It's so good.
I mean, Leather Teeth is really good, but that's just
Leather Teeth was too short. There was not enough on there, and I feel like Leather Terror really did it for me. And I tell everyone who listens to it, that transition from Daystalker into Night Prowler and the way it just shifts is just, I mean, I almost cry every single time because it is just so fantastic, you know. And I'm just like, I'm really hoping to get hopefully have Gunship come over here to the States. I would love to see Gunship live. I have yet to see Dance with the Dead live. I did 2 t-shirts for them several years ago and have yet to see them live, even though they come through pretty frequently. So there's so many great artists in that. And it's cool because it's like, you know, our love for horror, it's like horror movie soundtracks mixed with like a tinge of like metal in there. And it's so unique.
Well, it's bad because I discovered Gunship by accident at the shop. I was sitting there just listening to stuff on like Pandora or something, and one of the songs kicked in. I'm like, man, I like that. I need to. And then it's like then Carpenter Brute Turbo Killer came out, and I'm like, oh fuck. And then I'm like, holy shit, that's great. And then I started getting in. I was like, man, well, I kind of like synthwave because I grew up in the 80s and like every horror movie had a synthwave soundtrack, and a lot of the sci-fi stuff did too. And so I started like, just screw it. I'm buying this stuff. We're going to see how good it is. And man, I so far have not been disappointed on anything I've gotten. And I mean, there's the new.
That again, another 10 out of 10 album. That is so different from anything else he's done musically, but I absolutely loved it because it was a good balance of like industrial with that synthwave tinge in there. And it's like, man, that when the single what was the single? Death of the Soul, when that dropped, I listened to that thing on repeat for weeks. And when the album finally dropped, I had to pre-order it. And I was like, I have all this stuff on vinyl up to this point. And I just like, I cannot get enough, man. It's amazing. The only artist I don't really have anything from is Gunship, but their stuff's kind of harder to get. I got to see the Midnight in Indianapolis a couple months back, and they were fantastic. Good kind of the poppier stuff. Oh, that's so amazing. Those albums, again, 10 out of 10 albums. Man. They're so good.
I remember the first time I heard Woken Furies. And I was like, what the? Oh, my God. And my buddies are like, what? You're like the metal guy. I'm like, I know, man. Listen to this. Listen to it. And then all of a sudden, next thing you know, they're like, yeah, I like this. Hell, I've gotten customers at the shop that are like, tell me when Gunship's coming through. I was like, you tell me, because I need to go to.
I'm telling you, and it's crazy. And I tell so many people about, you know, the synthwave movement and stuff. And I'm like, you know, it's like, it's everything you love about the 80s musically with like a tinge of like arena rock in there. Cause it's like these bands should be playing arenas to tens of thousands of people. Because the music is made for that.
Oh yeah.
And like I said, when I saw the Midnight over in Indianapolis, it was a Tuesday night, a weekday. That place was packed out to the brim. It only held 1,000 people, but we were jammed in there. And the crowd was so loud, you could barely hear the music because everyone was just losing their collective. I mean, just absolutely going ape shit for them. And I'm like, dude, this is the next big thing. You get some of these artists on the radio and it's game over. It's going to be the next big thing.
Oh man, I tell you what, and it's surprising. I have Sirius Radio. And I'm like, looking, I was like, there's got to be a synthwave channel on here. No synthwave channel. And I'm like, are you shitting me? So basically, like, everybody comes to me and asks me what they should listen to at the shop. And I'm telling them, like, okay, you need to get this, you need to get this, you need to get this. And then, you know, then I go every once in a while, because I go through Mondo and Waxworks and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Vinyl. And, God dang it. Where's it at? Shit. Glitch Black.
Oh yeah,
that's a really good one. Then I got the Mohawks, the Mohawk soundtrack, and you wouldn't think that you know, a movie set in pre-America would be a synthwave soundtrack, but it does. And that's a pretty good one. But
oh yeah, sometimes stuff you just don't expect that has, I mean, such incredible soundtracks, and it's you know, I've been blown away, especially a lot recently, because there's even some of these artists who are doing movie soundtracks, and I mean, knocking it out of the park. Yes, Shockwaves has a great soundtrack, and I'm telling you, between Waxwork and Mondo, I don't know who has it better, man, because they both put out some incredible stuff.
Well, this is the other one, and you'll love this one.
Oh my God, that's so cool!
And it's the it's from TerraVision, and it's the
oh my God, it has the pop-up in it. That is so sick.
It's got the gate, got the big poster and everything.
I have it's in my want list on Discogs. I'm gonna pull the trigger on it one of these days. But I'm telling you, if you at all are a fan of like old, well, I say old, the video game franchise is still going, but like Resident Evil and some of the original stuff, there's an artist called Mono Memory who remixed all the save room themes from Resident Evil 1, 2, 3, Code Veronica 4, and 7, and turned them into synthwave songs, and it is so freaking good. I cannot recommend it enough. I'll totally send it over to you.
Yeah, send it over to me.
It's growing up playing the Resident Evil games and how much of an influence those have been on me. It's like hearing the synthwave tracks of the like save themes. I'm like, dude, this slaps. And I listen to it at work and all the time. Go, what is this? I was like, this is synthwave Resident Evil. And they're like, oh, it's of course, amazing stuff.
Yeah, there's just a lot of good stuff out there right now. And
absolutely.
I hate to say this, but sometimes I get bored at the shop and I fill out these stupid little questionnaires and you earn points. Totally. So basically, I just earn a shit ton of points and I buy a new album. I earn a shit ton of points, buy a new album. Because you get free Amazon money. And I'm like, whatever.
How can you say no to that?
Yeah. I just picked up, I picked some of it, though. The only problem with a lot of the synthwave stuff is it's either only available streaming or CDs. I had to pick up the Fury Weekend, Signals and the Essentials. It's a disc, and the only way I could find that was the CD. And they do go ahead.
No, sorry. No, I was just gonna say it's incredibly difficult, and I've learned this recently. A lot of these synthwave artists are either self-releasing, or if they go through a record label, it's usually in like super limited increments. There's a record label based out of Ann Arbor called New Retro Wave. And I usually pre-order through them. So it's like I've got all of Dead Astronauts. I got all their stuff, and Destroyer. I have all his stuff along with Stranger. They did a Night at the Grand House 1 and 2, and like they also released the In Search of Darkness soundtracks and stuff. But it's like anytime that record label releases anything, it's like they'll release 2 versions on vinyl. It's like one's this color, the other one's this color, and there's only like 100 pressed of each, and they go so fast. And then it's like the resale on that stuff, outrageous. Like that Mono Memory album I was telling you about, they only made 80 of them. And the cheapest on Discogs right now is like $250. And am I going to spend that to buy it? Yes, I am. But, it's like, it's crazy. Even like, an artist like Carpenter Brute, for example, to get the trilogy album of those 3 EPs, that sells so fast that if you want to get, like, I'm a color snob with my records. I like the colored variants. Mm-hmm. To get a colored variant of it, I mean, you're going to spend $100, $150. And sometimes it's just like, I can't justify that, knowing I can buy 2 or 3 of from another artist that I'm looking for, and it's it gets intense, and the stuff's just super hard to find anymore. And it's like, of course, if they like do re-release it with a different color, or hey, this has a bonus track, or we changed the album art, I'm like shelling out more cash because I was like, well, I need to get that one too. It is bonkers, man. But it's like, of course, the CDs are the most readily available. I guess they're just, easier to make or whatever, but it's crazy.
Well, what's funny is that I get, I'm got an account through Waxworks, I got an account through Mondo, I got an account through TerraVision. Mm-hmm. And so you get the emails immediately when stuff gets ready to get released.
Totally.
And I wanted the Dune soundtrack, mm-hmm. the Hans Zimmer. And I was like, okay. It popped up. It says, available Wednesday. I get online, sold out. Damn.
Yeah. Dude, it's like trying to get like a Mondo poster, because I have a lot of Mondo posters. I have this like super sick Judge Death one back mm-hmm. here. I have one for the Maniac remake. I have one for the Lost World Jurassic Park, and all kinds of goofy stuff. But it's like, and I'm lucky with some of them.
Yeah.
It's like, man, it's like the way bots just, I always miss out on all the really good stuff every single time. With I mean, whether it's record, a comic variant, or a poster or whatever, it's like I always seem to get there like 3 seconds too late.
Well, that's what killed me a while back. I was always missing the Tron Legacy soundtrack, and that thing was like over like $150. And all of a sudden,
that's a good one.
I get a notification, and it's like Amazon available. I'm like, all right, order. Let's see if I get it. Sure enough, I got it. It's like, sweet. Oh shit. Okay.
Yeah, Amazon can be a lifesaver sometimes, because I remember when the Cowboy Bebop soundtrack got released on vinyl, every retailer everywhere was sold out. And I'm like, shit, I'm not going to get this because I'm going to have to spend $100, $150. But then Amazon said that they had limited quantities available, and it was like $30. So I was like, I'm going to take the risk and just order it and see what happens. And I got it 2 days later, and I'm just like, oh my God, I actually got this thing. And so it's like every once in a while, you can score pretty big on there, or even eBay. Someone lists something, they don't know what it's worth. But
I just ordered this one a while back.
Yes,
and America, it's like $80.
Oh yeah.
So I was like, it was like, oh, it was shipped from England for $20. I'm like, I'll wait a few days. So
oh yeah. And the shipping from overseas usually isn't too bad. Like with Carpenter's albums, I've ordered all their stuff from the website, and it usually gets here, if it's not like a pre-order, it usually gets here within like a week or so. So it's like, I'll totally wait if what it's going to take. I mean, there's been, oh my God, so many different synth albums I've had to order that have come from like France, they've come from Germany, Spain, Portugal, wherever. And it's like, sometimes that gets here quicker than stuff within the States. No joke. Like there was a retailer I bought from in Portugal that, I kid you not, I've ordered stuff on a holiday weekend, a Thursday or Friday, and I've had it by Tuesday. And I'm just like, the shipping's super cheap, so I don't know what the deal is, because there's been times I've ordered stuff from Wisconsin and it's taken 3 weeks to get here, and I don't even know. But it's it's crazy how limited the stuff is, and how people tend to get a hold of that stuff, flip it for super crazy, and it's just, there's clearly a market for it. And it's like, I'm just like it kind of excited watching it build and watching people get more into this music style, because it's like, I remember listening to the first Gunship album week it came out, and nobody had a clue. And then I was working at Spencer's part-time in 2019, and hearing songs play at Spencer's was so wild, because I'm like, man, they've come that far, at least in that amount of time. And, you look like Ghost, for example. I remember listening to their first album when it came out, and no one even cared. And now they're one of the biggest metal bands in the whole world. I traveled to Chicago to see them on their first US tour in 2012. And they played at a little dive bar that like nobody was hardly even there, and it's like, and then not even 10 years later, see them at an arena show with 80,000 people. And like, this is very bizarre, but it's a cool feeling to watch artists grow and watch that demand grow, because it's like, that's like the true underdog story, something maybe not meant to be that big, get that big. And it's a cool feeling.
Oh yeah. Well, it's funny because when I started listening to Ghost back in the day, people were like, I was at work and people were like, man, what are you listening to? I was like, it's Ghost. Who the hell is Ghost? And that was back when it was at Ghost BC, because they couldn't even use Ghost because there was an American band already named Ghost. And I was like, oh, they're like Norwegian, and the lead singer pretends to be Italian, and they have this whole gimmick. And I was like, that's not, I don't know. I don't see that taking off. And then
and there it is.
Yeah. Hell, I'm not going. I grew up listening to Metallica, and I never thought Metallica would be Metallica,
Sure.
Because, I thought, I hate to say this, I thought their better days were, 90 and earlier. And then I thought everything, but no, they're Metallica. They're the biggest band in the land. It's crazy.
I growing up a big Metallica fan. I got to see them in 2016. They played at Rock on the Range. I saw them there, and that was an incredible experience. I only stayed for the first few songs because I was working the event. And after a long weekend and dealing with storms and stuff like that, I was not in like the best mood. I was like soaking wet. There was not a square inch on me that was dry. And it was just like, I feel gross. I want to stay for the first few songs. And I got to see him play some stuff from Ride the Lightning, which is my favorite Metallica album. So it's like seeing Creeping Death and Ride the Lightning both live, like within the first 5 or 6 songs. I was like, I'm good. Yeah, I can die happy now. So I'd love to catch them again, but it's tough because there's so many bands, especially now, that are like touring, because it's like, hey, we all went, several years without touring, so we're going to start playing shows now. And it's like, oh, every band in history is announcing a tour right now, to where you have to start picking and choosing what shows you're going to. And with me working on film, it's made it incredibly hard to go to concerts. I have a ticket to see Iron Maiden in LA in November, but I have to sell my ticket because it conflicts with a film schedule that I have. So it's like, I have to sell the ticket, and that sucks. But it's like, I had some people reach out to me about doing something in October. I was like, I'm seeing this band 4 times in October. I'm not missing any more of these shows, because God only knows how long they're going to be around, So it's like, I got to do it. But like I was saying with that Psycho Las Vegas set, I'm a big like death metal and black metal fan and stuff. And when I saw Emperor was headlining there, I'm like, they have not been to the States since 2007, and they only play 2 or 3 concerts a year. I was like, I have to go to this, So it's like I said, man, it's crazy seeing all these artists, not only touring now, but even artists that it's like you never expect to be huge and popular, grow and get to that point, and even in such short periods of time. And I think that's kind of one of the ways like streaming and the internet have really helped a lot of these artists out, because it's like word travels really fast. You you go into a comic shop and you hear them, you're like, oh, what's that? I'm going to check
Yep.
them out and tell my friends. You know, you go into a retail store, or you know, see someone with a cool T-shirt on, you're like, oh, what is that? And you know, it's that's kind of how it happens, you know. And it's amazing seeing that evolution. I can't say it enough. It's been so cool watching synthwave gain the popularity it has over not even 10 years, you know, closer to 6 or 7. And it's a really cool thing. And I am super thrilled to have been there from the start and seen it, but, you know, also being directly involved with how people, you know, helping people, you know, discover these things, and introducing a really good friend of mine and I, actually on our arms, we got the Carpenter Brute symbol on our arms, because it's like I introduced him and he fell in love, and it's like something we vibe with really hard. And so it's like, man, we got to get matching tattoos now. And it's a crazy thing. So yeah, I mean, if you ever get the chance to see any of those artists live, I mean, I cannot recommend it enough, because it's weird, because it's like you can dance or mosh to it, whatever you want, you know, whatever you're feeling in that moment. And it's you know, get a little crazy. It's fun.
Yeah, what's funny, you were talking about seeing bands, you know, because they're picking up this, that, and the other. You were talking about you met your girlfriend, first date was Prong and Obituary.
Yeah.
My wife, she kind of gets kind of mad about it sometimes, because she said she didn't have a problem because we went and seen Slayer.
Oh man,
that was her prom. My prom, I skipped out on my prom and I went and seen Skid Row and Pantera.
Oh wow.
And that was right when they were just coming off of, this is before Vulgar Display of Power, that Cowboys from Hell, and that was when they were playing Dayton constantly. I saw them like 8 times in like 2 years.
Oh, back when Hera was big, you know, yeah.
We were joking around because I was telling my kids, because you know, I went to like 2 concerts in 2 weeks, and they're like, man, that's a lot of concerts. Dude, I went and seen 3 concerts in 4 days, and I was like, and I had to get up and go to work, so it wasn't like I, you know, missed work. I was like, I remember the last day was a Saturday, but I had to be at work, and it was I think I remember it was like Megadeth, War, Slayer, and that I think Slayer was Friday night. And I'm at work and I can't hear a word anybody's saying to me. People are yelling at me, and I'm just like, and they're like, my buddy's like, you can't hear nothing, not a thing.
No, just hear that real high pitched ringing. That's about it. Yeah, it gets crazy, man, because it's like, especially when you like you know, get those shows all in a row and stuff, and even traveling, because I think so later this year I get off that movie set for Watchdog, and immediately after that I have Iron Maiden in Chicago, day off, have them in Columbus, day off, Detroit, and then I don't have them again till like Tampa. And I'm like, those are all pretty close. There was a point where I drove to Chicago to see Maiden. I got off work, drove straight to Chicago. I worked like a real early shift, went to the show, drove home, and like as I'm getting home, I'm like, wow, I have to leave for work in like an hour and a half. So I guess I'm just gonna get a head start and just go. And it's it gets crazy with the work schedule sometimes. You know, if you work a job where you got to be in early the next day, because sometimes you don't have that luxury of a flexible schedule. You know, it gets crazy. I started so in 2018. I went and saw Ghost when they were on a like an evening with Ghost tours, just them. They played like almost 30 songs, 2 full sets. It was amazing. But it's like I had to be up at 5 a.m. to get ready for work the next morning. And I'm like, I am going to hate myself tomorrow. I'm not going to be able to hear. I'm going to be exhausted. But it's all worth it. It is totally worth it when you get to see some of your favorite artists, or just get to experience a cool show in general. You know, it's there's nothing like seeing live music ever. No. I've never been able to compare anything to it. It's like literally the best feeling in the whole world.
It's live music is great, and it's I had to take time off because my old job I couldn't get days off, couldn't do nothing, and I'm like, man, nothing like getting up. So now I'm like, hey, I make my own hours. I go, hey, Mark, you're going to work on Thursday. Okay, bye. I'm going to. So
that's the cool thing about, you know, being either self-employed or running your own business, man. It's like, oh, I'm gonna make it work.
that's right. You're gonna go whether, you know, no one else. Like I'm sitting there, I looked at Mark, I was like, yeah, there's a week in August, you're working 2 days that week. I was like, because I'm going to a concert on Monday and then I'm going to a comedy show on Thursday. So you're going to be there 2 days that week.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Now we got way off topic here.
No, it's totally cool.
All right. Here's what I always ask. I ask all my horror hosts and stuff. I guess I can ask you this.
Totally.
You're going to make a movie.
Uh-huh.
Money's no object. Who are you hiring to be in your movie?
Man. That is a really good question. You know, oh man, that's tough. That is really tough. For sure, if money is not an option, for sure, Imogen Poots, because she was in the Fright Night remake. She was in 28 Weeks Later. She was also in Green Room, which is one of my favorite movies ever. She's amazing in everything ever. And I'm actually working on a movie next year where we actually had reached out to her agent about getting her in it. And I was really pushing for it. But she was a little too expensive. So, you know, we weren't able to pull it off, but her for sure. Oh God, that is a really hard one. If he was still alive, I would say, Anton Yelkin, just because he was so incredible in everything ever. Elijah Wood, for sure. I really like Elijah Wood. And for sure, Jeff Goldblum. I am a big Jeff Goldblum fan. Love him to death. So I'd love to see him in more horror stuff, because the closest we ever got is The Fly. And, you know, he did, what was that one? He did one called Hideaway, which I haven't seen in years. Mr. Frost. And then like Jurassic Park, but it's like, I feel like seeing him in something a little bit more balls to the wall, like closer to like The Fly, where it's like you can get really crazy and weird with it. I would love that. Man, I want to say Willem Dafoe too, because after his performance in The Lighthouse, I'm just like, put him in more horror oriented stuff. You know, it's like, give him a little bit more room to do whatever, because he is a madman and I love him. Nick Cage. I'm a big Nick Cage fan. I don't care what anyone says. I think he's amazing.
He is awesome.
He is, honestly. And he's been on a roll lately, because between Willy's Wonderland, one of my favorite movies of all time, Mandy is incredible. It's probably my movie of the year from 2018. But also, you know, Prisoners of the Ghostland, Color Out of Space. I mean, he's just been on one recently where he is like really doing an incredible job with some of the stuff he's doing, and he never phones it in, no matter how crazy, no matter how goofy or silly. He never phones it in. He's given that 110%. I love that. So I think he just does not get enough credit that he deserves. And I mean, I think he's a very talented guy. So yeah, I think those are some of the people I would bring in for sure, just because I love them so much. And it's like, hey, if you have the money to get the people you want, bring those people in for sure.
What's funny is talking to people who've actually been able to do that. They're like, we got, you know, such and such for 3 days. We're using it. We got it. He happened to be in the area. We reached out to his management. They said, we got him for 3 days. And I'm like, hey, man, if you can do it, do it.
Absolutely. And I tell people all the time, you know, it never hurts to reach out. And sometimes, depending on like the level of work that person has, you can work out deals sometimes. Because, you know, I've got to work with so many people that I've looked up to over the years. And having now being in a place where it's like, okay, I'm working with some bigger names, some kind of industry people. And it's like, well, now I kind of want to reach out and see what's the next tier like, you know, and what's it like from there, and like kind of start reaching out to bigger names. And, you'd be shocked how willing to kind of wheel and deal people are based on your budget and how many days they're needed. There is and I'll tell you once we're off air who it is. But for a movie I'm doing next year where I'm producing and I'm serving as special effects, there's a pretty decent sized name we reached out to be in it. And her agent was like talking to us and they're like, well, really, we asked for this much, but you know, if your budget's based here and you guys can take care of this and this, we can do it for this much. And we're like, yes. Oh my God. Yes. Let's do that. So we got a letter of intent from her and everything. So it's like when we pitch that to other producers who have the money and stuff like that, we could be like, hey, you know, she signed a letter of intent. So it's like, she's attached. It's just, all we need at this point is the money to actually make the movie. And it's kind of mind blowing how all that operates and stuff. And it's been a wild ride learning about that. And, you know, just how easy it can be if you directly reach out to the person, or if, you know, you talk to an agent, or if the agent's just like, yeah, we'll get that info to you. And then they ghost you forever. Cause that happens as well. Kieran Shipka, from Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, we reached out to her for a project and her agent straight up ghosted us. And I was just like, well, that's cool, I guess. I mean, I really wanted her in this, but whatever. So, you know, it is what it is. And, you know, for every no, you just move on till you get a yes. And, you know, that's just kind of the name of the game sometimes, but it totally blows my mind. Just like I said, how easy it can be of just like shooting someone a message and they're like, oh yeah, totally. And it's like,
oh yeah.
All right.
I reached out to Barbara Crampton for a script I had written. And, I was like, Dad, you know, whatever. She's like, well, send me a treatment. And I'm like, okay. So I sent her a quick synopsis of the movie and stuff like that. And she's like, well, what are you working? I'm like, I don't know. I haven't even started really yet, even looking at trying to film this. And I was like, you know, I wrote it with you in mind. And I was like, that was just and she's like, oh, I love it. I would love to do this. And I'm like, and my one buddy's like, man, if you got Barbara Crampton, that's bank. He said, you can get money with that. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing, man. I'm way over my head. I don't know.
It's amazing how quick it moves. And then you're just like, oh, I didn't think I would get this far, but this is cool. You know, it's Barbara's awesome. I met her at a con years ago. She's super, super cool. And I would love to work with her. And it's just like I said, man, just like what you did there, it's just reaching out to someone, just hoping to maybe talk to them about it and pitch it, you know, see what they say. And then they're like, oh yeah, totally. And it's like, what?
I had did a treatment because I love the Blind Dead movies.
Oh yeah.
And so I wrote a partial script treatment for a direct sequel to the last one. And it was going to take place in America. It was going to be, you know, and I had, you know, it's like, oh, you know where, and I had somebody was like, hey, send it to such and such. I'm like, oh, okay. So I sent this basic, like, 13-page treatment. And they're like, we really like it. What kind of budget are you looking at? I'm like, I don't know. They're like, well, let's you get a budget because right now it's not a what'd they say? Not a franchise that people are really looking for, but it does have some name. So you might be able to get some money to make a sequel. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm like, I'm just this dude sitting in my basement writing on my, you know, and I'm like, I never thought it would get that far. And, you know, I had one who was like, you know, okay, we can look at it, the budget. And I had one person who was like, nah, it's, that's you know, I'm like, that you actually read this treatment is something that I did not think anybody would ever do in their entire lifetime.
Oh, for sure. It's like I said, man, it's crazy. And like the Blind Dead, like talk about a franchise that is like super awesome, very underrated, that I feel like could benefit from being rejuvenated. There's a lot of those out there. And one that I was actually attached to for a hot second is a friend of mine was writing a kind of a remake sequel, kind of like a requel type thing to Necromantic. I had reached out to the director, forget how you would pronounce the guy's name, but I'd reached out to the director about it. And he's like, if you give me a treatment, he's like, I'll totally sell you guys the rights to do it. He's like, but I want to approve the script and the treatment, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, obviously, yeah. And, but he ended up, I mean, he got the script done and the director was okay with it, wanted him to change some stuff, but he kind of just like abandoned it. I'm like, dude, you might have had something there. Like, why'd you just give up on it? And it kind of broke my heart because I was like, that could have been something really, really cool. Because I like the direction he was taking it. But, you know, it's like, again, you know, people kind of, you know, change, you know, their opinions on things. And, you know, someone might be like, oh, you need to go here with it. And then they're like, I'm not really feeling that. But yeah, it's, you know, there's been a few movies that it's like, I've personally been like, man, it'd be cool to remake this or whatever. And at one point, I was like pretty dead set, like, man, I want to write a Reanimator remake. It's like, I love it. And I feel like I could do it justice without like mucking it up and whatnot. But apparently, I have a friend who is in the Castle Freak remake. And she told me that the same production team is working on a Reanimator remake and they're going to be shooting it within the next year. And I told her, I was like, listen, I don't ask for favors very often, but get me on that movie for the love of God. Like, I need to work on that. Even if I'm just a PA, I don't even care. I need to be on that. And it's, you know, but it's like, there's so many remakes that happen. It's like, and I'm not one of those people that's like super harsh on them because it's like, I give everything the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
But it's like, you know, you have something like Firestarter. Okay. And I'm just like, the original was all right. And I'm like, that's something that could benefit potentially. You know, when they did the Evil Dead remake, you know, a lot of people were real up in arms about that. I'm like, you know, give it a chance. And I ended up I really liked it.
I like it too. I think it's
and you know, the Maniac remake, which is such an off-the-wall thing. And I think the remake's better than the original. And I catch a lot of shit for that. But dude, the remake is so good. I love it. It's one of my favorites, you know, and I think they're just sometimes like, okay, but example of a really bad one, the Carrie remake. Yeah. Why would you even remake Carrie? And it's like shot for shot the same thing. And it's like not even believable. It's terrible. And, you know, but it's like you get something like the Blind Dead franchise or like, you know, Reanimator or Castle Freak or even something like along the lines of The Prowler. It's like, take some of the stuff that's like people like and there's a fan base for it. But it's like, how can you amp that up and bring attention to the original while also making something new that people are really going to be interested in? I thought that was an interesting thing they did recently with the film The Mutilator. The sequel just shot in North Carolina recently. It was shooting close to the same time we were doing Late Checkout because I had a couple friends that worked on it. And, you know, I'm just like, you know, same director came back to do it. A lot of the same writers and the same cast. And I'm like, you know, that's doing a sequel right, or like a remake or a sequel. It's like, get the original people involved. That way their hands are there so it doesn't go too out of whack, you know, because if they have some level of involvement with it, they're not going to let it be terrible. You know, so it's like, I always try to look at some of those obscure ones that I'm like, man, maybe no one's heard of this, or, you know, it has a fan base and how could we bring more eyes to this and make people, you know, really dig it. And the Blind Dead films, I think those are super cool. And I think a remake would be super awesome, or even just like do kind of what they're doing now where they're like retconning certain stuff and like, this is a direct sequel to this or whatever. And it's like, I'm even cool with that stuff, you know? So it's, I think you got me like excited about that. I'm like, take my money, make this a thing.
Well, it's like one other thing I kind of did a treatment for, but I wanted to do, I love the Demon movies, which you got your little poster behind you.
Yeah, Demons is awesome.
Yes. And I have like a bunch of the other Demon movies, like The Sect and The Church and The Ogre. And because there's, you know, Demons 3, The Ogre, Demons 3, The Church, or Demons 3, you know.
And I thought The Church was awesome. I love The Church.
I love The Church.
That movie rocks.
But I wanted to make another sequel to Demons, because you know what happens after they leave the theater.
Oh yeah,
because it just kind of, and then
Demons 2 kind of feels like its own thing. It doesn't feel super connected with the first one. At least I didn't feel so. I like Demons 2, but it does not hold a candle to the first one no. At all.
But yeah, I would love to make a direct sequel to when they leave and they go out and you have to figure out how to, the whole, just the world covered with demons. And I would love to do that. But they've never went with that. And I don't know if they ever will, but
I'm telling you, with Lamberto Bava still being alive, I feel like because that's my poster's actually signed by him. I got to meet him back in 2012, 2013, somewhere in there. And I feel like that would be the time for somebody to reach out and be like, hey, can we please get your blessing to do this for the love of God? It's because I always thought that was cool too, because it's such a cool way to end that movie, to have it, kind of spread throughout the city and stuff. And it's just like, what would happen next? And I read a treatment recently. Someone, I want to say it was with Fangoria or Bloody Disgusting, did like a fantasy 13-page treatment for what happens at the end of Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. Like, what happened? Because the movie ends so abruptly. It's like, what happened after that? And he came up with this super crazy story that it's like all the kids that kept the masks on like melted and then like mutated into these giant insect-like monsters and like started like attacking and eating their parents and stuff like that. And it's like, it was only like so many pages, but he's like, in my brain, this is what happened after. I'm like, that's actually super cool, and someone needs to do that. It's because there's been so many standalone movies that have either never gotten sequels or gotten sequels that weren't really connected to the rest, or a movie in a franchise that stands out, like your Season of the Witch, or like Friday the 13th Part 5, A New Beginning, that it's like they're so unique to themselves that it's like, how can you take that and run with it and go somewhere, Yeah. A movie I've always wanted a sequel to. And at one point I was like kind of attached to doing effects for it, was Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon. That is one of my all-time favorite movies. And my friend Christy, who was the publicist for Scott Glasserman at one point, I did some artwork for the movie, and it's used on the the digital release. So if you go on Amazon and look it up, the artwork they use is actually my artwork, which was super crazy. But that was around the time when they were talking about doing a sequel. And, they were like, we'll have you on and help out with the effects and stuff like that, just to help you kind of build your career. And, but nothing ever came of it. He decided not to go anywhere with it. I'm just like, especially now that it's been released on Blu-ray with like Scream Factory and all that, I feel like it's kind of rekindled this love with it being on, Shudder. I feel like all these people have kind of discovered it for the first time and become fans. I'm like, now's the time to do it, with it kind of, building that popularity again. And I think that's the hardest thing with doing that sort of thing, is like knowing when is a good time. Is the fan base still there? Do people care? Do people still see it? And I think every once in a while, someone gets lucky with something and they hit, and it ends up being a big deal, and people end up really loving it. And it's like, you have it easy with movies like when they did the reboot for Halloween and Halloween Kills and all that stuff. And it's like, obviously that's going to be a no-brainer. People are going to be all about it. But making something like, a remake, like talking early 2000s with like House of Wax or like My Bloody Valentine, and it's like how you get people to get super interested in those kinds of things. It's like, it's a gamble, and it's kind of like a game. You kind of got to play with it and see like what's popular, what are people into right now. And like right now, it seems like people are almost geared more towards like original stuff. You have your movies like Hereditary, Midsummer, The Witch, The Northman, and The Lighthouse, and it's just all that kind of stuff. And it's like that style of horror is huge. Jordan Peele stuff with like Us and Get Out, and now the Nope that's coming out. And it's just like, I think it's cool that people are as interested in original ideas as they are now, probably equally as much as they are with like remakes and sequels. But seeing original stuff get as big as it is, it kind of gives you hope for the film community as a whole, that it's like, cool, we're going to start to get some original stuff flowing, because it's actually doing well. But I did see today that they just announced a remake of Arachnophobia, and which is a movie I can't watch. I can't, because I'm terrified of spiders. So every time I watch it, I have a panic attack and I have to shut it off. But the director of Happy Death Day and Freaky is going to be doing it. So it's like, I liked those movies. So it's like, I'm open to it. You know, maybe this one will give me a heart attack as well. Who knows?
Oh, well, it's funny because I'm old school horror. I've been a horror fan since I was, little kid. Well, not little kid, but I wish we would get the old school like coming of age horror movies. Like The Gate and Lost Boys and stuff like that. And yeah, people go, well, you got Stranger Things. I was like, Stranger Things is the exception to the rule. Because that's the only, and that's a series on Netflix. It's not a one-off movie. I wrote a script for sitting around here somewhere. I literally write scripts. I don't type. I hate typing. So I have a script for a coming of age movie, and it takes place on how it's like the last Trick or Treat. I think it's the working title right now. Mm-hmm. And I'd love to bring something like that back too.
Absolutely.
I don't think we have those anymore. Actually, I don't think outside of I guess feel good movies. There's no really coming of age movies. But yeah.
Well, and it's easy. It's easy for a series like Stranger Things to do that because they have so much time to get you super invested and into these characters. That's like, come on, that's easy. The last thing I can think of that kind of what was like a big deal that people were talking about watching was the summer of '84. People were kind of into that, but it even didn't go to that quite coming of age as much as it could have.
No.
And like Turbo Kid kind of had some of the feelings and stuff and the feel good stuff in there, but it, again, did not hit the way it could have. I worked on one back in 2021. I say that like it was 6 years ago. It was called Date. Oh God. Yeah. Anytime I think of 2020 or 2021, it's like I can hear the choppers. I worked on a movie back in 2021 called They See You. Directed by Tori Jones, and I'm telling you, he's starting to do on an independent level a lot of like coming of age stuff, and he's mixing it with horror really well. The best way I can describe They See You is it's like it's like a cross between Tales of the Crypt Demon Knight meets It Chapter 1 with some Monster Squad like sprinkled in there. And it like in the best way possible. I have a copy. I'll have to let you check it out. And it was a ton of fun to film because it's like, it's totally coming of age, but it's like also like relatable in the way the kids talk and stuff like that. It's like super witty and funny, but it's also like super violent. There's a pretty nasty head stomp in the movie that we had a blast filming. But he just did another movie this year that I was not involved with called Phantom Fun World. That's like, kind of like has Scooby-Doo vibes, but also has like the Five Nights at Freddy's kind of vibe to it, but it also has like some coming of age sprinkled stuff in there. And it's like people have been liking that, what he's been doing with that so much as far as like our Indiegogo backers and the people who are catching these movies at festivals and stuff. And that's getting such good reviews that he's starting to push more into that direction. And it's like the horror elements are still there, but it's like a lot of it's centered around coming of age type stories that people can relate to. And I want to see more of that because like The Lost Boys, dude, that movie's like one of the best ever, I'm a big fan of like The Goonies, I really like The Goonies, but it's like I want to see some horror elements sprinkled in there. And I think It Chapter 1 did that so well with, combining the, being a kid with the horrors of real life and this unseen horror as well. And it's just like, it's so well done. And it's just like, the formula's there and there's so much great media to pull from for inspiration and to see how it's done. Why not?
Well, the thing is though, is we can all relate to being a kid. Mm-hmm. We've all gone through it. We've all gone through, some of us went through shit. Some of us didn't go through shit, but to every kid's mind, even the littlest bit of crap you go through is just colossal amount of shit that you just climb through. And, because we always joke around about, when you're growing up, every moment seems like a lifetime.
Absolutely.
You feel like you're never going to get any older. You feel like you're going to be stuck, I joke around. I was like, I remember being a kid and waiting for the Star Wars movies to come out, and it felt like a lifetime. Mm-hmm. And it was 2.5 years. It was 2 years. It was like,
oh yeah.
And now I sneeze. It's like 2 years later.
Oh, dude, you're not even kidding right now. I feel like the last 5 years of my life have gone by like that, and I'm like, and everyone's like, dude, just wait, it gets worse. I was like, don't tell me that.
Oh my god. Well, that's like the other day. I was going on Facebook, and my store's 10-year anniversary is next month. I'm like, 10 years? It's not right. And I'm like, look back at my dates. I'm like, man, I've been self-employed for 8 years. This is the longest job I've ever had, is now working for myself. My son, who just wandered in back there a little bit ago, he's 11. He's going to be 12 soon. And it's like, holy crap, he was just born not too long ago. Holy crap, and I just start looking at it, and it's just boom, 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 boom. Everything gets faster. And it's like,
yeah. And when you look back on being a kid, and it's crazy, because I used to work with kids a little bit. I worked in Piqua, actually, at the YMCA youth center there, and just kind of like overseeing them, making sure they didn't like get in fights and stuff like that, and just kind of being a positive influence. And it's like, I was 21, 22 at the time. I was fairly young. But it's like, I remember hearing those kids who were like 12 and 13 complain about some of the stuff they did. And I'm just like, guys, that's not that big of a deal. And they're like, oh, it's the end of the world. And I'm like, no, dude, you don't even know. And now it's like, I'm almost 30. My girlfriend's 35, and she has a 10-year-old son. And it's hearing about the stuff he talks about, I'm just like, oh my God, I remember going through that. Or I remember dealing with that at school, or experiencing this in my life, or thinking that was a big deal. And I'm just like, looking back, it's like, God, that felt like an eternity. That felt like the end of the world. And now it's like, I look back and I laugh. I'm like, that wasn't shit.
Yeah.
It's so crazy. And I think since we've all lived through being kids, and we can all look back on that with either happy memories or the bad, or look how we made it through this, or look how awkward that was. And when we get to relive that in a movie, it's like, it's very endearing and very entertaining sometimes, especially when it's written in a very quick-witted way and written in a fun, creative way that makes you resonate with those kids. And that's what makes Stranger Things so good, I think, and it's not my favorite thing in the world, but it's like, man, those kids are super relatable. It's like we were all friends with those people.
Well, what's funny is, have you watched any of this season?
I have not.
Oh. Well, it doesn't get.
I need to.
I burnt through it relatively quickly. But there's a kid. He's a kid. He's a dude named Eddie, and he is the heavy metal Dungeons and Dragons guy. And I'm like, that was me, man.
Oh yeah,
that was. I joke around because my buddy keeps sending me little things from the Satanic Panic era, and I'm like, I was really bad at that. I was like, man, I was into D&D. I was into heavy metal. I was into horror movies. I wore black. I did all this stuff, and I was like, I didn't worship Satan, and I didn't sacrifice nobody. I'm just really bad at this.
It's funny you mention that, because it's like, obviously everyone and their mother's watching it, and it's like, I remember, people talking about like, all these different characters in the show and stuff like that, and how relatable it is, blah, 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 whatever. But when Eddie Munson came in, and I see everyone posting about it, and the amount of people are like, that's you. And I'm like, and I want to make a post that's like, hey, now that, Eddie Munson's cool, and you all think he's like the cool singer, how about you go back and apologize to all the metal kids you were mean to in high school now that it's cool? Like, it's just because it's like, I have looked and acted like this guy since my whole life, and I'm like, wow, now it's cool. It's so entertaining to me how much people are like loving that, and he's like the fan favorite right now. Everybody's talking about him, and it's like, I've seen clips, and it's like, I've watched little things here and there, and I'm like, this is fun and I like it. But it's like, back at that time, God, if you were like that during the Satanic Panic, like, your parents were freaked out. your school counselors, they were freaked out. Like they thought for sure you were killing people. Like and again, kind of looking back, with my dad being in his 50s, he grew up in that time, and he's all like, man, he's like, if I was your parent back then, he's like, all of this would be very problematic. And he's like, looking back, he's like, I didn't think it was a big deal, but I remember your grandma freaking out when I brought home the Motley Crue Shout at the Devil album with the big black pentagram on it. She had a fit, and your grandpa came in and talked to me about it. And it was just like, oh my God, it's hilarious. Because it's like, now I convinced my grandma to buy me black metal albums on vinyl, and she has no idea. It's hilarious. Because I'm like, that's the really satanic stuff. But it's man, it is so much fun seeing just the dynamics and just the variety of characters in something like Stranger Things, and how well they're not only capturing like that time period. Obviously I didn't grow up then, but I watch a lot of stuff. You learn a lot, read about it, know people who have it, but then just like also make these characters so relatable. Like, God, I was friends with that person for sure. That person reminds me of this person, or what have you. And I think, it's like that when you watch a lot of different stuff. And I think the 80s was the best at doing those coming of age type things. Again, like you got the Goonies, you got the Lost Boys, you got Monster Squad, Adventures of Babysitting. And it's like, you name it, it's there.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's so hard to recapture that. But there is media that's out there now that I think does it right. It's like I want more of that, because it's just, I feel like it's right for our time, especially with how nostalgic people are about things. It's like every 20 minutes I was like, oh, I remember when this was a thing. Or you get those ads on YouTube that's like, these 15 commercials from 1995 or whatever, and then you go back and it's like, wow, there was a primitive memory I didn't even realize I remember that. It's like going back and watching a cartoon that you're a fan of as a kid. It just, all that just comes back and hits you.
I do my two YouTube shows. I do one called Sci Fridays, which I take old sci-fi shows, not even really that old stuff from the 70s, 80s, 90s, even the 2000s.
Sure.
And people love it. But the one that I do a like horror. I was going to do a horror host, but I decided not to because there's good ones out there, and I didn't even want to try to be one.
Sure.
So I ended up doing one. I do my show called Saturday Morning Serials, and I show Saturday morning cartoons in blocks with commercials, like the 4 hours that you used to get on a Saturday morning. So it's like 8 episodes, plus I'll tack something on to see if I can get it past YouTube to be able to air it. So I do that, and I got people who were like, oh my God, this was my Saturday morning, every Saturday morning, and oh, thank you. And I'm like, that's why I'm doing it. It's because my goal is to save all this stuff, because some of it's lost.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, like Turbo Teen. There's like 6 episodes of 13 that are available.
Insane.
Yeah. But I do that because I joke around. I say I'm a historian. My goal is to make sure that this stuff never disappears.
For sure.
And my wife hates it because she's like, where are you gonna put all this shit? And I'm like, I don't know.
It doesn't matter right now. It just
doesn't matter until I run out of space. I was like, because at my shop I have my storage there, so my bunch of my comic books are there, my VHS collection's there, my Laserdisc collection's there, some of my DVD collection's there, most of my DVD collection's here if it's not boxed up and put away, and my Blu-ray and all that fun stuff, and then my comics, which are stacked up over here. But yeah, no, I'm definitely a child of the 80s. I love that era. Like you say your dad's what, 51?
Yeah.
I turned 48 in just a handful of days.
So, okay, so pretty close, yeah.
We're really close. And I still play Dungeons and Dragons to this day when I can.
Oh yeah.
I'm still a metal guy, still love my horror movies. Somebody asked me one day, they're like, so, what's different from you from high school? I'm like, well, I'm married and I got kids now. I was like, because I'm one of them guys that what was it? Somebody said, just because you grow older doesn't mean you have to grow up.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
I am a firm believer is I take care of my family. I take care of my bills. I take care of all my other crap I need to take care of. But when it comes down to it, life's too short not to enjoy yourself.
I
And
totally agree.
if I'm sitting there watching a horror movie, if I'm reading a comic book, if I'm watching a cartoon, whatever. You know, people are like, man, when are you going to grow up? I was like, the day before I die, probably. I don't know. Uh,
We'll figure it out when we get there, and it's just, you're totally right. Life is too short to not enjoy the things that you love, and it's like, I game online with my friends because it's like a lot of them have moved away or gone off to other places and stuff, or sometimes we just get so busy that it's hard to
definitely
get together with people. And that's why Zoom's awesome for, like you said, you play D&D, it's a great way for everyone to get together and be able to do those things, because it's like, oh my God, trying to arrange a meeting with your adult friends is like impossible, so it's like, we game online, and sometimes we talk about it. It's like, every week it's like, oh wow, this person just got married or this person just had kids. And I always make the joke, because it's like all my friends are getting married and having kids and stuff, and they're like, Deryk, when are you going to settle down? And I was like, get married, have kid, blah 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 blah. And I was like, man, I have a kid right now and it's me, and I got to take care of this inner child. Because it's like, and I always make the joke that it's like, it's when you run into people when you're like out and about and they're just like, oh, we just had our second kid, just bought a house, what are you up to? And I'm like, I'm getting paid to throw fake blood at people. Well, like, that is my life. But it's like, like you said, you can grow old, you don't have to grow up. It's like, I feel like it's kind of ingrained in our brains that, like, when you become an adult, it's like you have to give up the things you love, you have to give up the things you care about, and it's like you have to pay bills and work until you die. And it's like, there's more to life. You can still do those things and have fun on the side. I mean, there is enough time, there is enough room for you to do the things you love and care about. And I feel like, especially like my generation, the kids kind of late 20s or early 30s, that range, are really doing a good job of like setting that in precedent and actually going through with that. And it's like, I'm seeing it a lot more, that people are like, spending the time on the things they care about while being adults as well. And it's just like, I can't support that enough. It's just, that was the scariest part about being a kid, is thinking like, oh man, someday I'm going to grow up and I can't read comic books anymore. I can't watch cartoons anymore. And it's like, no, I'm not going to stop doing that. Like, I'm still going to watch cartoons if I want to. And, ever since I got HBO Plus, where they have all these old Cartoon Network shows I used to watch growing up, I'm like, oh my God, yes, I'm going to binge all of this weekend. You killing me? It's just like, oh my God, it's crazy. So it's, I always love meeting other people who are, into that same stuff, that, a few years older than me or significantly older, that like stick to it. And, when you go to a concert and see someone who's like 60, there and enjoying it, and it's just like, oh my God, there is hope. And I'm looking at it right in front of me. It's again, it's one of those feelings that, you can't really compare to anything else. And it is kind of that hopeful feeling that it's like, okay, life isn't all drab and awful, and I can grow up and be an adult, but I can have fun while doing it, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Oh yeah, it's what was it? We were talking about this and it was on an episode of the Goldbergs, which I thought was hilarious. The son looks at the dad and he goes, because he sold like his dad's like stamp collection to buy, yeah, and he goes, I get it now. He goes, it's the reason I don't, I still got my toys. He goes, it reminds you of a simpler time when you didn't have bills, when you didn't have to worry about going to work, when you didn't have to do this, and this. And I'm like, yeah, it is. It's great. And it's funny because like you with your job and stuff, I actually got to kind of brag today to one of my old bosses. Mm-hmm. And he's like, what are you doing now? And I was like, I do great. My store does really good. I mean, especially for Piqua, it does really good. And he goes, really, that much? And I was like, well, literally, I make in 2 months what it used to take me an entire year to make. I was like, I have free time. I can spend time with my kids. I can spend time with my wife. I got hobbies now that I can enjoy. I can go to movies. I can go to concerts. I was like, man, when I had a full-time job, I just worked to work. And I'm like, I hate that. I was like, I'll never do that again. And I'm like,
oh yeah. I have so many friends that have done what you do. They start a business, and I have a really good friend who lives in Dayton that I used to live with, and he was working at the Dorothy Lane Market. I mean, his whole life, it was the only job he ever had. So he'd had it since he was like 16 or 17, and he's like in his mid 30s now. So his whole life, that's all he knew. And there was a point he got injured at work. He had to do workman's comp, and his job gave him all kinds of shit for it. And they were treating bad and like acting like all weird. And he's like, and he wasn't being shitty about it. All he said was, I want the money to cover my medical bills that isn't covered by insurance. And it was not even that much money, like at all. And his job was being weird. So he's like, you know what? Fuck it. He got the money. And as soon as he got taken care of, he quit the job. And he loves to clean. Like, he cleans his house like 3 times a week, and it's like cleaning. There's something satisfying about that. So he started a cleaning business, and that's what he does full time. That is his job now, and he makes more money than what he made at that old job. And it's like, I couldn't be more proud of him. There's times where I go on jobs with him, and he'll clean houses. He cleans for Airbnb. He cleans people for like move in, move out, all that good stuff. And it's like, I mean, he makes a killing with it, and with what I do, it's a little bit more niche, but it's like I get the opportunity to work and be involved with things that I care about, and in like a what's the right word? Like a community that I love to be a part of. And it's like I still have a part-time job that I keep on the side for in between gigs, but it's like I make good money. Last year, I did pretty solid. And then this year it's already better. And it's like each year I do it, I see it like kind of snowballing and getting bigger and bigger. And it's like, it's almost like people forget that when you do grow up, when you do become an adult, it's like, that doesn't mean you have to get some dead in office job. It's like everything you dreamed of doing when you're a kid, you can still do that. You have your whole life to chase that and do it. It's like, sometimes I get, and I, like anyone else, we can be self-critical if you're an artist or if you're pursuing a dream or something you care about. It's easy to kind of be hard on yourself sometimes, think like, man, I'm not progressing the way I want to and stuff. But it's like, you see like those posts on Facebook that's like, well, Tina Fey was like in her 40s before she ever hit any kind of success. She's waiting tables at 42 when she, got her gigs with, SNL and like this person and this person. And I'm like, okay, so maybe I'm not doing too bad. Like I'm doing all right. And it's like, it kind of puts it in perspective that it's like, you don't have to be married, buy a house, have 2 kids by the time you're 25. Like that gets like ingrained in our brains, but it's like, everybody is going to live their life a little bit differently, and different things work for different people. So it's like if that's what you want, more power to you. That's awesome. If that is success to you, then I could not be more happy. But it's like, that may not work for me. And if I'm like, don't decide to do any of that till I'm 40, like who cares? It's like, you got one life to get out there, do it and enjoy it. Like you said, being reminded of those simpler times with, buying the action figures that maybe didn't exist when you were a kid. They didn't make toys for this when I was a kid, or, this is the toy I always wanted, but never got for Christmas. And now I can buy that.
Yep. And
it brings back a memory, or even, going to see a band that you never got to see when you're a kid, or, like you said, starting a business that is surrounded by something that brings you happiness that you enjoy. And then realizing, wow, I've made a career out of this. And it's like, that's making it. Everyone has different levels of what they think that is. And it is so cool to see so many people, especially nowadays. I mean, I think the pandemic did it a lot too. Really put in perspective how short life can be, how quickly things can go very bad, and how much time people had to really sit and think about things, be like, I hate my job, I'm going to do this instead. And they end up loving it even more. And it's like, I tell people all the time, you have all the time, in the world until you die, and no one knows when that's going to be. So it's like, use that time and have fun with it and do the things that you love, do things that you care about, chase that dream no matter what it takes, even if you have to do it on the side for a little bit until it really takes off, at least entertain it, you know?
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, I get super passionate about that stuff just because it's like, you know, I've been very fortunate to have had the ability to do some of the things I've done that it's like, I tell people all the time, never in a million years did I think I would have moved to LA and worked with the people I did. When I left LA and came back to Ohio, I thought my career was over. I thought I was never going to do film ever again. And then almost 5 years, a little over 5 years later, I got to work on Zombieland Double Tap down in Atlanta. And that was like the greatest experience of my life. And never in a million years did I think I would get to that point. Took some time. And then now, since then, it's like year after year, I'm getting more and more film projects and bigger and better stuff. And it's just like, it takes time and you got to work at it. But it's like, life will surprise you with the stuff that it kind of throws at you. And you just got to be willing to accept and run with it and, you know, use certain things to your advantage to make it work, you know? And it's, so when people get weird about the, you know, whole like, oh, you know, when are you going to grow up and stuff? And it's like, you know, I am a grown up and I'm still having more fun than you are. So, you know.
Well, we were laughing about this a while back. I had a guy who's like, you know, you took days off to go to movies. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go see. Now I don't have to, but it's, you know,
yeah.
Like when the Star Wars movies came out, like the original,
dude,
and then the
absolutely.
Lord. Oh yeah, I was like, yeah, I'm going to be there at midnight. Back when you had to go to a midnight showing.
I miss that. Let me tell you.
Oh man, I'll tell you what I missed was the old Pickwa Theater on Halloween. They would have a midnight showing of 2 movies, and I miss that so much.
Oh yeah,
because it was.
I miss when the theater was still in the mall. I miss that a lot. I miss midnight showings because now it's like stuff starts Thursday afternoons, and it's like you can still find a showing close to midnight, but it's like it doesn't feel the same as going right at midnight. Because back in the day, and I was watching a podcast about this, the Dead Meat Channel, they do the podcast as well. They're on YouTube, and they were talking about how they went and saw Snakes on a Plane at a midnight showing, and how the theater was crazy. People were like throwing rubber snakes everywhere and stuff. And it's like going to the Star Wars midnight showings, people bring lightsabers and stuff. It's like, you don't have that anymore. You're not allowed to. They about throw you out for it, but it's like, it's not an event like that anymore. And I miss going and doing that. You know, I miss because they did it up till fairly recently. Because I remember seeing Force Awakens in 3D close to a midnight showing. And it's just like, they don't do that anymore. And like, you know, movies doing like we're going to bring back these old horror movies and we're going to do a double feature, you know, on Halloween. And it's like, now you got to find like some real small independent theater that does that stuff. I mean, you have the like Plaza Theater down in Dayton that does it every Halloween. They bring old movies back. I got to see Beetlejuice and The Lost Boys back to back. And that was awesome. But it's like, I don't know, it just doesn't feel like, it's not a huge event like it used to be, you know. And that's kind of one of the things that sucks a little bit about it. But it's you know,
we were laughing. I was talking about midnight showing the first Wednesday when the Blair Witch Project came out.
Oh hell!
First showing, Huber Heights Theater, because Huber Heights was the only place that was playing it around here locally. I took the day off work because I worked third shift. And I don't even think I took the day off. I think I took part of the day off and showed up midday because I was working third. And, you know, you don't get that anymore because now everybody sees the movie roughly at the same time.
Sure.
When you get, you know, one showing, theater, midnight, 150 people probably.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, I remember seeing that movie and then you had the ending and everybody's just like, are those people really dead? You know, it was like...
What's crazy is, and this is kind of how the internet ruins things in 2 ways. I want to go back in time and be there for that because that movie was a game changer for sure. Not the first of its kind per se, but it was a game changer. Nowadays, you have the internet so you can look it up and realize, oh, okay, this isn't real.
Mm-hmm.
Or B, everyone's seeing everything at the same time. So how quickly spoilers come up.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I don't even have to watch a show when it comes out because it gets ruined for me almost immediately on Facebook. You're like,
Mm-hmm.
I haven't watched any of Obi-Wan yet. But I'm like, well, I don't have to because it's like, here's everything right there. And even pages that like report on stuff, like, you know, Consequence of Sound or like Bloody Disgusting or whoever wants to share anything, it's like they almost share spoilers now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Geek Rant and all that stuff, or Screen Rant, that's what it is. And I'm just like, y'all are supposed to be like reporting on this and talk about it, but you don't have to give everything away. And it's that kind of ruins the fun of it, and it kind of ruins the mystique of those things. You know, the next closest thing I can remember within my lifetime, and it, again, another one of those movies that made me really want to do it, and it's a weird one, but Cloverfield.
Oh yeah.
I remember when Cloverfield came out, because it was around the time found footage was like obviously an established thing, but it's like, I remember seeing that and thinking like, what is this? You know, what's going on? And when you watch that movie, if you show this to a kid who wasn't around for that time and doesn't know what it is and said, this happened, someone would probably be like, holy shit, that happened? You know, but it's like at the time, the marketing that went into it, same with Blair Witch Project, you know, or even I remember Paranormal Activity when that happened. They had people believing that it was real ghost stuff caught on camera, and like people were convinced, and they're like, this is the scariest film you'll ever experience. It's showing the crowd reactions in the theater, and it's like you don't get to have fun with that, you know, because everyone's like, oh no, it's not real. And it's like, come on, I want to believe it's real though. And it's but Cloverfield and Paranormal Activity are like the closest thing to like the Blair Witch effect I think we've ever had. And I'm like longing for that again, because of course a lot of it was my age too, because I was younger when both of those came out. But it's like, you know, the marketing was so genius behind those. And, you know, it's like even going back to like when Cannibal Holocaust came out and the director was taken to court because he's like, you filmed these people dying, dude.
Yeah,
and
they
he's
had to
like,
go
no, I
find them.
swear. It's like, I can't even imagine, you know, and how shocking that must have been for that time period, because there's nothing like that.
No.
And then, you know, with time, you know, so many other movies that have come out of that nature where it's just like the way it's marketed and what it's portraying is so jarring to the people seeing it. I mean, the Blair Witch Project had to have been an unreal experience. I can't even imagine.
It was one of the ones where I have never in my life, before or after, we're watching the movie ends, dead silence.
Wow.
Just and you no one was getting up. Everybody just kind of sat there for a minute like, are they dead? Are those people really dead? And literally, you know, I go in and I'm using the restroom after, and the guy's like standing next to me, and they're like, I can't believe those people's families let them show them people dying on film. And I'm like, this is great, because you know now people are like, oh, Blair Witch is stupid. You know, I'm like, you don't understand.
People don't understand the genius that was that movie to make something so low budget, to use no-name actors for it and have them give the performances they did, show as little as they did. Because if you think about it, something like that, you probably wouldn't see anything.
No.
You know, in any situation like that, even with real footage that is comparable, I mean, you look at any ghost activity, anything on YouTube, anything anyone's ever filmed, you never really see anything. You never really experience anything. So it's like the way that was done was so clever. And it's just, anyone that I talk to is like, that movie's dumb. I'm like, you're just mad because it's so good. And it doesn't even need to try, because it exists to be that fucking awesome. And it's like, it just drives me insane when people like bash it. And I'm like, sure, the sequel sucked, and the one that came out in 2016 was okay, and it was like, I liked what it tried to do.
Yeah.
But it's like that original, I mean, nothing will ever come close to that.
Well, so early in the internet, it had its website up with missing posters, and if you have any information, they had the Curse of the Blair Witch, which was, you know, the supplemental video that went with it that was on Sci-Fi Channel that gave you more backstory of this whole thing in the movie. And it was brilliant. I still to this day, if I dig through my poster collection, I have the original missing poster.
What?
Blair Witch Project with the three of them, Heather, Josh, and why can't I think of the other guy's name? But it has them, has their birth dates and stuff, and it says missing dates, blah 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 blah. But it's the missing poster from Blair Witch Project. Yeah,
dude, that's amazing.
Yeah,
that's an amazing piece to your collection for sure. Oh my God, that's just, and you know what, you hit the nail on the head with that. Is like, that was so early in the time of the internet, and that was pure genius for them to be like, we can convince people using this, because it was before you had clickbait. It was before it was flooded with so much stuff that it's like that. Again, it's everything about how that film was made, marketed. It was all pure genius. And it was like the first person to decide, hey, I can use Kickstarter or Indiegogo to raise money to make a movie. And people who want to see it can give me money to do it, and I'll just give them stuff in return. This is a great idea. And it's comic books, skateboards, like whatever you want to design or make, anything ever. And it was just, God, it was so ahead of its time, and it was just using something that, again, to its advantage to really drive home that what you're seeing is real. Yeah. And convincing people of that to the point where it's like people believed it. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, talking to my dad, because he remembers when it came out, or some of my friends who are a little bit older than I do who remember it, they're like, we thought we watched these people die on camera. We were just like the people said when you were at the showing that, I can't believe the families would allow for this, you know. And it's just, I cannot rave enough about that movie. And it's like, to watch it to today's standards and to like what people see in horror movies now, like I can see how people could be like, okay, like it was good, but it's like, it's kind of boring, you know. And it's like, I get it, but it's like, that just adds to the mystique. It adds to like the authenticity.
Yeah, because if you're going to film stuff like that, you're going to have just mundane stuff going on. You're just going to be walking. You're going to be talking and bullshitting, and you know, everybody's like, well, there's no soundtrack because you're walking through the woods. You don't have battery. You know, back then you'd have a freaking Walkman or a Discman, so Absolutely. You would have X amount of batteries. You wouldn't want to drag all that crap with you, and you know, so there's no music, and it worked. And, you know, I think people look at it now because they're like, oh, you don't even see the monster. I'm like, man, the fact you never see the monster is great because you don't
10 times scarier.
Yeah. Because is there a monster? Is it, you know, Josh crazy? Did he murder, you know, were they team? You don't even know because it could have, you know, still this day. Yeah. The Blair Witch, the new movie gave it an actual ending and actually there was a monster. But, you know, when you watch that first time, you're like, did that actually really happen? Did the other guy, was he there? The one that was, you know, did they just murder Heather? Is that what happened?
I'm telling you, like I said, I would give anything to have the opportunity to go back in time and like be there to experience it. Cause it's like, that's more than just like a movie going experience. Like that is like just an overall just an assault on the senses and an experience, I mean, thoroughly. And I say that with a lot of found footage because I'm a sucker for found footage movies, like entirely. If it's found footage, I'm going to watch it and I'm probably going to love it. You know, when I watch movies like the Wreck films, I think those are like, that's probably my favorite like franchise because it's like the way Wreck 1 and 2 flow and intertwine the way they did was so perfect. And, you know, it's like any found footage movie is going to have that kind of mundane, boring kind of, you know, build up to what you see. And it's like, that's any home movie ever. Like we have all seen those home movies where it's like an hour of something boring and then something really funny or entertaining happens at some point or someone does or says something. And it's like, it's just, you know, the lack of soundtrack, you know, it just, it creates something. It makes you, when you experience a found footage movie, it feels like you're seeing something you shouldn't be seeing. Like you're just being shown something that could be real. And I think it helps with suspending disbelief. Because it's like the way it's presented to you as this was caught on camera, you know, and you shouldn't be seeing this, or, you know, that's how it feels like watching Cloverfield. It's like, this is a huge historical event that was caught on camera, or Blair Witch Project, where you're seeing potentially a murder scene, or, you know, maybe there's this spirit of a witch out there that's killing these people, you know, or Wreck, where it's like, this is, you know, unseen camera footage from this news reporter. And it's just, I love that stuff, man. It gets me all amped up, and it's like, I want to make a found footage movie at some point, but it's like, I feel like it's not as popular as what it once was, you know, and it's kind of gone past, but I'm like, man, I love that stuff so much. As like, how could you not? Plus it's super easy.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Like,
if I ever get a chance and enough people, I'm making one. I'm just,
absolutely.
I've got a treatment over here in my notebooks, and if it ever happens, shit, if I get 10 people on a weekend, we're making this movie.
Yes, because that's all you need. Just get some people together, like 4 or 5 days at the most, and just do it.
All you need is this
editing.
Yes.
Oh my god. So like my camera, and every time I'm on set, I do this. It shoots at 4K, 24 frames a second. That's film quality. I mean, they shot, what was that movie? Unsane. They shot that all on iPhone, and I'm like, it looks amazing. And it's just like, dude, this is incredible.
And that's on my I've been on my old iPhone that I got. No, that's at the shop. I have the shop iPhone, and that's what they shot Unsane on. I was amazed by that movie. I had to go see that when the only place it was playing was Huber, I think, when that one.
Yeah, it was a good one, and I thought it was really cool, and just seeing how the technology has advanced for filmmaking. Even you take from Blair Witch, which was, what was that, 98, 99, somewhere in there. From then to now, how much that is advanced, or it's like, you know, you have people making movies on Zoom now with movies like Dark Offerings and Host. And it's just like, it's amazing how far people have come, and just what you're able to do with so little. Like, even you take like red cameras that they used to make the Marvel movies and stuff, and Ari, and it's like, those at one point were like hundreds and thousands of dollars, and they still are for some of the models, but there's some you can get for like $5 or $6 grand, and it's like, in the grand scheme of things, you buy it, get you some lenses, it's like, you can make as many movies on this as you want now, you know. It's but even like, there are, you know, Sony cameras. We shot Late Checkout on 2 different Sony cameras that shoot in 4K, 24 frames, and the quality is comparable to that of a red. And I'm like, and they're a fraction of the price. You just got to know how to format it a specific way to look like that. And you get, you know, obviously when you're editing, doing your color grading and stuff, and it's like, the ability to make Hollywood level films with so little, and I think a lot of that comes from like a lot of the secrets being leaked, and it's like, you know, anybody can do just about any film job you want now, because there's so many people that have talked about it, and so many tutorials and stuff, that it's like, man, if you just take some time to learn some stuff, anybody can do it now. And everybody is, you know, it's like anybody and their sister would be making movies. It's but it's amazing the advances that have been made, and all the different ways people have thought of ways to make and do these things. It's absolutely crazy, and it's fun to see the creative ways that people decide to do it. Like when Host came out, I was like, you're telling me this is all on like a webcam, like it's all in like a Zoom meeting? And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna watch it, and I enjoyed it. I thought it was a ton of fun.
The one that surprised me was my wife was like, "Hey, there's a movie," because we saw the trailer for, was it Unfriended Dark Web? I think what it was, and I was like, okay. And I think that was during I want to say that was during the movie pass craze. So we were just going to the movies constantly.
Sure,
$10 a month. I saw like 100 movies one month. Um,
just going just to go. Why not?
I'd get bored. My best friend, he'd be sitting there because everybody would be asleep at the house and there'd still be movies on at the theater. I'm like, hey man, we're going to a movie. He's like, yeah, let's go. So we just go to a movie at like 11 o'clock showing, and we whatever.
Before they were like capping it, be like, well, you can only see this many in a month because they realized that people are just gonna go, you know. And it's like, oh, I missed that.
I remember the weekend that hit. It was the weekend of Avengers and Infinity Gauntlet or Infinity War, because we went and I watched it because my wife and I were away for the weekend and we were in Indiana. And that's when they moved it up a week. So we'd already had the plans to go away that weekend. I'm like, man, let's see if there's a theater over by where we're going to be. So we went to this little tiny theater over in Indiana that reminded me of the mall. Mm-hmm. That's the way it was set up. Went there, watched it on Thursday night, came back to Piqua, and I watched it again. And I had to the ticket kiosk wouldn't take it. So I went up to the cash register and it took it. And then they're like, oh, so I was like, all right, well, they're going to take it so that we can't see it at all. So I took and went and seen it again the following Sunday. I'm like, I'm going to risk it. I'm hell with it. Went in again, but I went to a different theater. This time I'm in Huber. And I got to see it. And that was the last time I got to see the same movie more than once.
Jeez. And I remember seeing Infinity War when that came out, and I really liked it, a lot of the Marvel stuff. And I feel like those movies are probably the reason that they stopped doing it, because it's like, you know, they were trying to make that the biggest movie of all time by the time Endgame came out, which, you know, rightfully so, because it was like a franchise 10 years in the making, you know, and still going strong. It's I miss the movie past days. I saw a lot of movies in that time period, and not as much anymore, you know, just with so much stuff going straight to streaming. It's like, I was like, you know, I could drive out to go see Mortal Kombat, or I can just pull it up on TV right now. And it's
that's what I did.
Again, just the advancements in technology and the ability to do different things, with streaming being like, you know, the most predominant format that people are intaking a lot of their media. And even the form of media, we were talking about this on late checkout, because I think movies are only going to be what do you say, roughly an hour and 10 minutes, and everyone's like, man, that's pretty short. And I was like, you know, a lot of movies outside of like Marvel movies and stuff, like a lot of stuff that goes straight to streaming, not that long, really. Like a lot of stuff's, you know, shorter, you know, at an hour, maybe a little bit more.
72, 74, 70. Yeah. I see a lot of that.
Oh yeah. A lot of Shudder original stuff's fairly short. And it's like, you know, it's like now, because people, it feels like people aren't as into longer movies now. They kind of just like either want to take in a series or see something that they can watch in an hour, like on their break at work or whatever. And so it's like there's no in between. So it's like I was getting excited because I'm like, wow, movies are getting longer. That's kind of cool. But now everyone's like, nah, I want a series, or I just want a quick stinger. And I'm like, okay, that's cool too, I guess. I don't have the attention span for a series sometimes. That's why I prefer movies. But it's it's crazy. There's like a series for everything now and spin-offs for everything, and everyone wants to create universes and stuff. It's wild how that evolves, and watching how the marketing and how that's media is presented to us now, how much that has changed even in the last 5 years is really, really crazy.
Oh yeah, the pandemic changed everything, the way we see movies.
Absolutely.
I was talking to my buddy the other day, and I was like, I keep hearing that before too long, the only movies we're going to see in theaters are your big tentpole movies, your big summer blockbuster movies and stuff like that. Everything else is going to go to Hulu, Netflix, streaming. And I was like, you know, I think the days of going to the movies to see a, you know, $2 million movie are gone.
Yeah.
And unfortunately,
you're not going to have your movies like X playing at the theater.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a movie like that is going to go straight to streaming. You know, a movie like The Northman, straight to streaming. Something like, I'm trying to think what maybe 4 or 5 years ago, even a movie like The Conjuring, something like that, that was pretty big deal in the theater. You're going to see that stuff going straight to streaming, unless it's like Top Gun, or if it's like a Marvel movie or Star Wars. Even a lot of Star Wars stuff is going straight to streaming with Disney Plus, and it's I think it's a game changer, and I do in a lot of ways think we'll probably see a lot of theaters go under, at least the big chains and stuff like that, potentially, just because I don't feel like they can keep up with the streaming, especially with so many studios making deals with them. And I think streaming is going to be the new thing. And I hate to see it, because I do like going to the theater.
Yeah.
But it's like, I do think that is the future of our media intake, because of like the Obi-Wan series. Like, that's something that maybe 10 years ago, that would have been a movie.
Yeah.
About a 2-hour movie. But now it's like, they're like, well, people want more, so we'll just do a series, or like Moon Knight, which is basically like a limited series event. And it's like, you know, even though it's probably not going to go beyond the 6 episodes that they did, but it's like, or 5 or 6 or however many it was, you know, 10 years ago, that would have been just a movie.
Yeah.
And now it's like, hey, we can do a series, stretch it out, show a little bit more, and we'll just put it straight to the streaming service and charge you X amount of dollars a month. And then a lot of that stuff doesn't even get physical releases anymore. Like Netflix, for a lot of their originals, they don't do physical. And so it's like, you have to pay that monthly if you want to see it. And it's honestly, it's genius on their part, but it does kind of suck if you're a collector or someone who doesn't really give in to the streaming, because it's like the only streaming service I pay for is Shudder. The rest are just shared passwords with friends in my friend group, you know. And it's gotten to a point that I remember when Netflix, when it first started, where it was the mail-in discs first off, but then when it started to become streaming, and Netflix had everything ever. And then everyone else was like, well, we own these properties, we could start our own streaming service. And now what you pay to get everything you would want, well, God, it costs the same as having cable. So it's like, why not just have cable? You know, it's so funny how many people, you know, canceling cable and stuff, and now it's like everyone's doing streaming. And now Netflix is like, God, I think I saw somewhere they lost.
Yeah, they're hemorrhaging money bad.
Yeah, they lost a lot of people recently, and it was right around the time they said they were going to start charging people extra for password sharing. I don't know if they've gone back on that claim, saying they were going to do that, but or with them, like the month of them announcing that, they lost like, I want to say 3 or 4 million subscribers worldwide, and I'm like, that's a pretty big chunk of people gone. Well, so it's just like, man.
They dumped all that money into what, Red Notice. They dumped a bunch of money into these series that just kind of, and then the series that people do like, they're like, well, that didn't bring enough in. People like it, but they're not watching it.
Yeah.
So one series, one and done. Like I like that, what, Archive 81, I think it was.
Yeah.
I really like that. We're never getting an ending to that, which sucks. So
yeah, and it's like with them raising their prices too, because I think like even a basic plan right now is like $12 or $15, and I'm like, good God, like, and that's not even, you don't even get your shit in HD with their most basic plan, you know. And I'm just like, this is not worth it. And it seems like they're definitely slipping with a lot of their original content, like a lot of new stuff that comes out. I'm like, man, you have a show like Mindhunter, for example, or Mindhunters or whatever. It's the one with the serial killers and the FBI and all that. And great show, but we only got the 2 seasons. And I'm like, why wouldn't Netflix try to pick that up and continue that on, or find a show like Hannibal? I liked Hannibal when that was out, because it was kind of a different take on Hannibal Lecter and all that. But it's like, it's just kind of sitting in purgatory, and we never got to see that wrapped up. And it's like, how about instead of making these originals that do okay, pick that stuff up, you know? But it's like, it's all a battle of like who has the rights to what, and it gets messy for sure.
Yeah. They picked up one of my favorite shows. They picked up Lucifer.
Yeah.
And that was one of their best streaming shows they had. And that was picked up from Fox. So
Yeah, and it's like I remember when that ended originally, a lot of people were really upset. I never watched it. I really need to because it's been recommended a lot. But you know, it's like, man, I'm shocked by the amount of shows that have been canceled that were like people really like that. Multiple streaming services haven't been like, hey, we'll buy that off you and we'll keep it going, or we'll pick it back up and we'll do this with it or start a new one or whatever. But it's like it does seem like that is the golden standard for media right now, is either a series or a shorter movie, and that's what you get. So, you know, hopefully we get some more stuff in the future and get some more interesting things and more true adaptations of things we care about and love as fans, because it's like now is the perfect time to be into nerdy stuff, because it's like we're finally getting great adaptations of things that we've always loved. Except unless you're a Resident Evil fan, then you can suffer forever. But
I'm not gonna lie, I liked Welcome to Raccoon City.
It was fine. It was not as bad as people made it out to be. It was fine. It was fine.
I liked the cast.
The cast was great.
Yeah,
I loved them.
I can't remember her name. The one that played, you know, she was in Crawl and stuff like that.
Kaya Scioto or whatever. She played Claire. Yeah, she was great.
I love that. All right. I gotta get back on one topic.
Yes.
Okay. I asked people this: if you could work in any other genre, what other genre would you love to do?
Okay. I obviously predominantly do horror. I've done one action movie, and even it was on the fence. Saying sci-fi feels kind of cheaty because it's so close to horror, so I'm not gonna say sci-fi. I would say comedy for sure, just because I love to laugh. I like to have a good time. I love a good comedy movie. Plus comedy, you can have a lot of special effects related stuff in comedy movies. I mean, look at a movie like the Ace Ventura films or The Mask. I'm just going to bring out a lot of Jim Carrey stuff because it's like very, you know, with obviously his makeup, but then like all the prop animals and stuff like that you'd see in like in that, or like the Addams Family. It's like there's so much stuff out there where you can utilize those things. So I'd say comedy for sure, because I've not had the opportunity. But it's like when I watch a really funny movie, and having worked on movies, I'm like, how do you keep a straight face on set when something this ridiculous is being said, and being said probably 150 times? Because it either gets really old really fast, or it just keeps getting funnier. And it's like there's no in between. It's one or the other. Or if somebody like breaks character or ad libs something, and I'm just like, man, I don't know if I could do it, because I am a giggly bitch and I will like laugh at anything. And I just like I want to try at some point. I really want to try to do a comedy movie for sure.
Cool. Well, we've been at this for over 2 hours. But yeah, it's been great. We got you coming to the PickwaCon on the 26th.
I'm super excited about that. I've yet to do a con of any kind for the work that I do. So this is the first, and I'm kind of glad that it's something kind of hometown with it, and have the opportunity to kind of show off some of the work that I do, as well as promote some of the stuff I've been working on. And I can't thank you enough for setting me up with a table there and all that good stuff. I am so excited for that.
Are you going to be bringing some stuff that you can sign? Any movies? Any?
I'll probably bring. So my goal is, and I can't make any guarantees on it, but my goal is to get some smaller, maybe 11 by 17s made of a couple movies that I've worked on, and I'm gonna try. Because some of the people who worked on Late Checkout are fairly local, so I can probably get some autographs on some stuff, and sell some autographed stuff. I might try to get some copies of some movies I've worked on, and maybe have a handful there to sell for people to check out. I'll have some original artwork that I've personally done there that people can check out, as well as maybe some props and stuff like that. because I mean, a lot of the props that I use on movies, whether it's a prop knife or it's a severed arm or whatever it is, I keep all that stuff if I can. And so it's like I have a whole closet that's just filled with stuff. People laugh about this all the time, and I know if Cassidy, if you're watching this, you'll laugh. I have a silicone head of my friend Cassidy, and it looks so real. Like, it's disturbing how real this thing looks. And I keep it in my fridge here in my makeup studio. So when I have people over to do like a live cast or something, I'll be like, oh, you know, help yourself to anything in the fridge. So they open it up and there's just this gnarly severed head in there. And I bring it with me everywhere I go. When I get like I'm traveling or going to another set, I'll put like hats on it and stuff, and I put it in the passenger seat, and people are like, what are you doing? But it's like, it's really fun and it's entertaining, and I was glad that I got to keep it. But yeah, so I'll have all kinds of goodies there with me. So I'm still planning on all of the stuff I want to bring, because there's so much that I'm like, man, how do I even begin to bring all this stuff? So I'll figure something out. It's going to be cool. I can guarantee you that for sure.
Cool. All right. Well, I'm going to let you go for tonight. And
Awesome.
Once I end this, you could tell me who that was with the. Yes. So, all right. So I'm going to say adieu. Thank you for being on the show. And
thank you for having me.
And as always, the Group Therapy Podcast is brought to you by RU Game, the best comic book collectible, magic, video game, DVD store located at 124 North Sunset Drive, Pick, Ohio 45356. And you can catch my other shows, Fridays at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Saturday Morning Serials, 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and Group Therapy every Monday at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. And it looks like we're probably going to be adding another Group Therapy sometime during the week so we can get caught up with all the shows I already have in the can. So, all right. Well, you guys have a good day, and I will see you all.